and they want to focus on the branches rather than the root of the problem. So Daniel and his friends don't want to defile themselves with the meat that they're commanded not to, with food that they're commanded not to eat, and Ashton does not want to lose his job and get killed by the king because he thinks if they don't eat this diet that they will look worse off than all the others. So Daniel then comes up with a compromise, a settlement of differences by mutual concession. This is the compromise that Daniel offers. Then says Daniel to Melzar, whom the prince of the eunuchs had set over these four guys, prove to thy servants, I beseech thee, 10 days, and let them give us pulse to eat and water to drink. Then let our countenance be looked upon before thee, and the countenance of the children that eat the portion of the king's meat, deal with thy servants. Essentially what Daniel is saying, okay, let's do a 10-day test. We eat what we think is good. They eat what you're serving. And at the end of the time, we'll go by what your concern is, and you can judge and say, if we don't look healthier than the others, we will then go and we'll then cross that bridge when we get there. But this is a possibility, and they gave God time to work, 10 days. So verse 14, so he consented to them in this matter and proved them 10 days. So the compromise is agreed to. 10 days later, their countenance appeared fairer and fatter in flesh than all the children which did eat the portion of the king's meat. And thus, verse 16, Melzar took away the portion of their meat and the wine which they drank and gave them pulse. So by Daniel standing up for what's right and coming up with a good compromise, he was able to then keep himself from doing what he believed was wrong and also bring those of his generation, of his countenance with him. Verse 17 through 21 then talk about how God specifically blessed these four men and gave them favor, and then when they came before the king at the end of the 3 years, they were the best of the group. So God comes through and says, because you have followed me, because you have kept your convictions, I will then bless. And we all know, here's another, I'm going to give one more example and then we'll open it up for discussion. In Daniel chapter 3, and I'm sure we all know Daniel chapter 3 pretty well, this is the fiery furnace. Honestly, it's one of my favorite chapters in the Old Testament. And essentially what happens is Nebuchadnezzar gets a big head, says he wants to be God and have everyone worship him like God, or whatever, sets up a big, huge idol in a plain of solid gold so that you see it for miles around, tells all of the people of position of influence and power, they come to this plain, and then when they hear music, to bow down. Now, I don't know if you've ever been in a scenario where something like this happens. You have a large group of people, most of you possibly in a church or some type of large gathering, large group of people, everyone sits down except one or two people. Do they kind of stick out a little bit? Yes, they do. Now imagine everyone standing, music starts, and everyone's flat on their face, worshiping this idol, or bowing down and doing whatever they are flat on the ground. They're not just sitting down. They're like below your knees. And you're one of only three people standing up right now in front of a king. And I'm going to back up just a little bit more and say, we really don't know how powerful a king is. We don't have one in America, but pretty much a king gets to do whatever he wants. If you make the king not happy, you are made like not happy as well because you are killed or start into something very bad like that. So you really don't pick off a dictator. And that's essentially what Nebuchadnezzar is. So, essentially, all of the music starts, everybody but these three guys fall flat on their face, and they come to a position of choice. They have a choice of deciding what is a conviction and what is a convenience. Will they only worship the one true God? Is that a conviction or a convenience? And then, will they save their lives? Is that a conviction or a convenience? For them, they chose... actually, let's look at what they said. They're called before Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar said, I'm going to give you another chance. And then they reply with, O king, live forever. Thou, O king, hast made the decree that when everyone hears the music, they fall down and worship, and whosoever falls not down will be cast in the fiery furnace. Oh, no, I'm in the wrong verse. Just a second. Here we go. Verse 16 is the one I'm looking at. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we are not careful to answer thee in this matter. Essentially what that means is we've already decided what we're going to say. Yes, Daniel 3:16. Verse 17, if it be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of thy hand, O king. Interesting comparison here. As they go in, they agree that their God has the ability to deliver them from the fire providentially. But at the end, they say, either way, he will deliver you, God will deliver us from your hand. So they held on their convictions, and they didn't decide at the last minute what they were going to do. There is several people who... Can y'all still hear me now? I need someone to say yes or no.
Yes.
Can anyone? Okay, awesome. What they've done is they already knew what the consequence was. They already knew what the command was going to be. They already knew they were going to be given a choice that was either die or stay true to God. And they had already decided what their convictions were, and they already had solidified what they were going to do, which is how they were able, when they got before the king, they were able to say, you don't need to give us 5 minutes to consider what we're going to do. We already know what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. And either way, God will, he can deliver us from out of the fire. And either way, he will deliver us from, and either through death or through supernatural deliverance. Needless to say, King Nebuchadnezzar didn't like that. He didn't like that at all. And he ends up getting really upset. In fact,